password requirements for Active Directory can be configured through group policy. In Windows Server 2012 R2, there is the ability to use fine-grained password policies for domain users. The GPO for password policy is found in the default domain policy. Now, as I mentioned before, we want to be careful. We're going to go into group policy management, and there are not a lot of settings that I would suggest an inexperienced administrator try to configure. But for password policy, we right-click on the default domain policy and click Edit to bring up the Group Policy Management Editor. And we're going to drill down to that particular policy under Computer Configuration, Policies, Windows Settings, Security Settings, Account Policies. Let me make this a little bigger. Password Policy. Now, I've already configured all of these. When you first open up the management editor, GPO management editor, you're going to see a few things. So if we look at the minimum password length policy, so we right click on it, click on Properties, and it's a good idea. Each one of these has an explanation tab, and it gives you quite a bit of information. So for this one, the settings value, if you set the value to 0, it disables the use of passwords, and then no passwords are required. That's a bad idea. Best practice is to set the minimum to at least 8 characters, and there are various opinions on how long the password should be, and even more opinions on how long it will take to crack. On average, an 8-character password using spaces, capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and special character typically would take a program about 30 to 90 days to use a brute force attack. And that's changing every day based on scripts that nefarious people are writing and the computing power of computers getting faster. However, by adding just one more character, the time to crack increases exponentially to anywhere from 8 to 12 years. So 8 characters is probably good. 9 characters would be better. So this is set right now to 8 characters, and we could increase it to 9, but this will go hand in hand with some of the other policies, or the other requirements, I should say. So the maximum password age will go hand in hand with the minimum password length. So again, if we right click on it and we go into Properties, we can look at the explanation for how we should configure this. This correlates directly, like I say, with how long and complex the password is. So we saw that an 8-character password takes anywhere from 30 to 90 days to crack. So you would want to have your users change their password somewhere within that same time period. The default for this particular one is 42 days. Again, security is one of those things. We don't want to make it too difficult on our users that they become frustrated and potentially get into habits that actually make our security less secure. If we make it too tight, they might write passwords down, attach them to the bottom of their keyboard or whatever. So we don't want to do that. So I've set this to 30 days and just click OK. The minimum password age policy, we'll right click on that and bring up the properties, and again, looking at the explain tab gives you a lot of information here. It really guides you through. The default is 1 day on domain controllers and 0 on standalone servers. The minimum password age policy is used to obviously specify the minimum amount of time in days that the password must remain in use before it can be changed by the user. Obviously, it has to be less than the maximum password age policy and has to be set to a value other than 0 in order to enforce the password policy history. The best practice is to set this value for 2 days, which is what I did. Take a look at enforce password history. Again, right click, bring up properties. There's a decent explanation right here. But basically, the enforce password history policy allows us to set how many passwords will be retained by the server before an old password can be reused again. This just forces users to use passwords that they have not previously used, which improves security. And best practice is to set this to 24 passwords that are retained, which is what I did. And this one here is kind of goofy the way it's worded. Store passwords using reversible encryption. So if we go in here and we look at properties, we've got the explanation here. You can read through that. But basically, if you enable this policy, it is the equivalent to storing the passwords in plain text, which is a very bad idea. Disabled by default and should remain disabled. So if we want to put our password policy to the test, we can go over here to our workstation and we can try a couple of different things. Let's sign this user out, and let's try changing a password. We'll sign back in, I guess. Let's see if we can get this one locked out. So I'm going to enter a couple of passwords that are wrong. Okay, so I've entered 3 passwords, and on the 4th try, it's going to tell me the reference account is currently locked out and may not be logged into. So that increases our security. It helps with brute force attacks. So now this user is going to have to contact the network administrator, who's going to have to go into the Active Directory users and computers. They're going to have to find that user. And it's pretty simple for the administrator to do this. They find the user, they right click on the user, and we go to properties, account, and right here this little tick box, unlock account. This account is currently locked in the Active Directory domain controller. So we click the box, we say apply, and OK. Now if we go back over to our workstation and we try to log in, and voila, we're back in. Let's try to change the password for this user. It asks for the current password. And I'm going to put in a password that's too short. And you can see it says unable to update the password. The value provided for this new password does not meet the length, complexity, or history requirements of the domain. And again, that password, there's something missing, either the length, complexity, or history requirements. That concludes this video on password policy using group policy objects. Thanks for watching this video, and be sure to check out my other videos regarding group policy, network infrastructure, and a variety of other topics. Also, don't forget to check out my friends at CC Mixter and the great music that they provide for videos and productions such as these.